Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks, where every word matters. As the Moldovans decided over the weekend to follow the pro-European path in the nationwide referendum, another post-Soviet country, Georgia, is gearing up for the election to decide its future for long years to come. Will Georgians choose the West over closer ties with the Kremlin? And can Russia still meddle in the second round of the presidential election in Moldova? Well, to discuss these issues, we're joined by George Melashvili, founder of the Europe-Georgia Institute, a Tbilisi-based pro-European NGO. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. And to address your opening remarks, Georgians have already chosen Europe over and over and over again, so we have another test ahead of us.
Well, yes, nevertheless, the October 26th is a big date for your country. So which will it be, the West or the East? What are the polls saying?
Indeed it is. The polls are overwhelmingly telling us that the Georgian public is going to elect pro-European opposition parties, something which the model of the opposition is very similar to what actually happened in Poland not that long ago. So the opposition decided to create several camps, 4 parties, not uniting in a formal electoral list yet, but promising to cooperate after the election. Right now, the polling indicates that these opposition parties shall be able to get enough votes, more than the ruling pro-Russian party, and eventually form the government.
Mm-hmm. And who poses the biggest threat for the ruling Georgian Dream Party? Is there like one grouping that can pose a serious challenge to lead the whole opposition?
Well, that's exactly the good thing about this election. The Georgian Dream has used to utilize the United National Movement, Georgia's biggest opposition party, as a scarecrow for the electorate, and they have been demonizing this specific political party for a very long time, even though they still are able to get majority of the oppositional electorate. However, right now we have 3 additional parties, the parties that are equally distanced, both from the United National Movement and the Georgian Dream. And this coalition, together with the president of Georgia, whom you are seeing to the right of me, poses the biggest threat to the rule of Georgian Dream so far. The president of Georgia was able to create a framework, the Georgian Charter, which united all opposition parties, despite their disagreements, and there are lots of those, over the idea of Georgia's European integration. So this election, it's not going to be about usual issues. It's not about pensions, it's not about way of life. It's about Georgia's foreign policy. It's about our decision. It's about our future. And that's why all political parties, even though most of them hate each other, to be honest, decided to put aside their differences right now and work together within the spirit of the Georgian Charter for Georgia's European future.
Right. During the past few months, we've seen some demonstrations, mainly in Tbilisi, and we've seen mainly young people protesting against the ruling party. So my question is, who's the group to play a pivotal role in the upcoming election? Will it be the young ones? Maybe the immigration it is also a very numerous group, or will again the province say no to Europe?
Well, the province does not say no to Europe. The province is unfortunately gaslighted by the propaganda from the ruling party, which is overwhelming in specifically rural areas. And we must say that this propaganda attempts to differentiate peace and war, as Georgian Dream puts it, is relatively successful because of lack of oppositional media in Georgia's regions. However, more than 2/3 of Georgian population live in big urban areas, Tbilisi, Batumi, Kutaisi, and we definitely can tell you that the big cities are against the ruling party. The rallies that you see on the screen right now, and I'm actually in one of those people marching in front of those cameras, they sent a very clear message to both the ruling party, but also to everybody in the world, that Georgia definitely chooses Europe. When 100,000 people march in the streets without any specific political protest, but as a sign of support to the European Union, that matters, and that is very important. The Gen Z, the younger generation, the students, all of them have a very strong understanding that Georgia is part of Europe, and this political decision to join the European Union is exactly what they need for their futures. Yes, we do have some representatives of the older generation who, due to some nostalgia and gaslighting from propaganda, still believe that somehow the Georgian dream or Georgian nightmare party leads Georgia to the European Union. So it's not about choosing Russia for some people in the older generation. It's about them believing television, believing propaganda, and not being yet able to identify what's actually going on. And that's why the straightforward commands from our European friends, from the European Council, from Poland, from Germany, from all the countries, were so helpful to break this enchantment that the Georgian Dream Party has been trying to put over the Georgian public, and to gaslight the public that actually getting away from European Union was somehow getting closer to it. That was their propaganda was built on. That was they have been trying to convince the public in a very Orwellian way. But the youth has awakened. We see unprecedented participation of youth groups, of students in all the protests, and we are expecting a very high turnout. Elections in Georgia have traditionally been a thing for the older generation. So the parties were talking about pensions, the parties were talking about social guarantees, healthcare, but now the youth is awakened and the discourse has shifted towards Georgia's European future. Of course, the mistakes, sins, and damage the Georgian Dream Party has already done is very huge, but we are carefully optimistic, I would say. First of all, thanks to the youth that is ready to defend Georgia's European future.
Mm-hmm. Georgia, one thing is casting your vote, and the other is who counts it, right? Now, how transparent will these elections be, and do you think that Russia will try to meddle in it?
Russia is already meddling in the election in Georgia. Bidzina Ivanishvili, the Russian oligarch who is the head of the Georgian Dream Party, he made his money in Russia, his mindset is Russian, and everything he's doing aligns with Russia's interests. So that's very obvious that Russia is actively participating and trying to coerce Georgian public into supporting Georgian Dream. However, I also have a very strong belief in Georgian nation. We've had a couple of times when the ruling party tried to steal the election. It ended very, very bad for the ruling party in 2003. It ended very problematically for the ruling party in 2012. So the Georgians, we do know how to defend our vote, and trust me, we're ready to defend it. Also, this year we have the machines, electronic counting for the votes, for almost 80% of the vote. So that's also a very good development, and we hope that these machines will be able to at least decrease the level of falsification from the ruling party.
Mm-hmm. That's good news for the sake of democracy, of course. Now, I'd like to ask you about Moldova. The Moldovan president, Maia Sandu, has already accused Russia of buying votes during the public vote on the European integration. Now, do you think that Russia may try to use the same tactic during the second round of the presidential election in Moldova?
I have no doubt they will. The way how Russia operates is identical in many countries. They're trying to find weak points in the country, divide and conquer it. That's exactly what they did in Georgia, and that's exactly what they will be doing in Moldova. We in Georgia have been looking very closely at the referendum in Moldova, I think just like everybody in Europe. And what happened in Moldova is a very strong motivation for us to fight for the future of Georgia as well. I'm very happy that the people of Moldova, despite Russian meddling, despite unprecedented attempts of Russia to get involved in this election, chose Europe over Russia, chose peace, European security, stability over the Russian meddlings. So we're very happy for them, and I hope that we in Georgia will be able to repeat what the people of Moldova were able to do. Whatever Russia tries to do, whatever the meddling, whatever the tricks and techniques they have left, All of it will be, of course, used in Moldova. And I hope that the people of Moldova, just like the people of Georgia, shall be able to overcome Russian meddlings.
Now, which country do you think the Kremlin could afford to lose? I mean, they are now clearly playing on both fronts. I mean, in Moldova, in Georgia, they're also obviously entangled in the war in Ukraine. But I'm wondering whether they can afford rather to lose Georgia, a hugely important country in terms of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, or I mean Moldova, of course, and then we have Georgia, the loss of which would be a huge blow to Russia's position in the Caucasus. So, first of all, can they afford to choose? And if so, which would they choose?
There is only one country that Kremlin can afford to lose, and this country is Russia. The regime of Putin is something that needs to disappear if we want to see European security stable and coherent for the years and generations to come. It's not up to Kremlin to decide which country to lose. That's exactly the problem with the Russian imperialist mindset that needs to become part of the trash of history. So when you're asking me about Russian influences in the Caucasus, they're already losing Armenia. Russian influence in Azerbaijan is very, very limited. And right now they have two regions of Georgia, Abkhazia and Tbilisi, that are suffering under Russian occupation. So if we are talking about Russia losing influence, of course they should lose this influence. And I don't think it will be up to Putin or Kremlin to choose. That's up to the people of Georgia. And our choice will be very loud and clear on the 26th, or the days to come.
Yes. Lastly, I'd like to ask you about the so-called foreign agents law. It was the regulation that was hugely protested against by thousands or hundreds of thousands of Georgians. Now, is your NGO also a victim to these new regulations? And if so, from your perspective, has it truly affected the pro-European movement in Georgia?
The Russian law against civil society, as we call this law, was a very big failure of the ruling party. They were hoping that civil society would be broken, we would be divided, some organizations would register, some organizations would not, and eventually the ruling party was hoping that they would be able to strangle us. They were not able to do this. They failed. And the fact that we have hundreds of thousands of Georgians marching in support of the European Union, waving the flags of civil society organizations, waving the flags of Georgia and the EU, of political parties, is a very clear demonstration that they failed. They wanted this law to become the last brick in the wall that they were building in front of Georgia's European future. But the ruling party miscalculated. The Georgian civil society demonstrating outstanding resilience. And we are here, we're continuing the fight, and I'm sure that this fight will be successful for Georgia's European future.
In a very short time, we'll learn the truth about it. George Melashvili, founder of the Europe-Georgia Institute, a Tbilisi-based pro-European NGO, was our guest this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and of course, stay with us for much more here on TVP World.